Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling a beast, and I really don't use that word lightly.
No, this one's earned it.
It has. We're looking at the whole cybersecurity landscape for right now, 2026. But we're doing it through the lens of, I guess, the gatekeeper certification. The one everyone, and I mean everyone, says you have to have if you want to get your foot in the door.
It's the gold standard.
The gold standard, exactly. CompTIA Security plus the SY0701. But here's the thing that really, grabbed me when I was going through this mountain of study guides and course notes we have here. This isn't just about memorizing port numbers anymore, is it?
Oh, not at all. Not even close. That era is thankfully long gone.
It feels like the whole game has just changed completely. Now we're talking about AI, we're talking about supply chain attacks, zero trust. It just feels like the stakes are so much higher. And the syllabus, it reflects that terror.
The stakes are absolutely higher. And I think that's why this specific version of the exam, the 701, is so important. It's actually reflecting the reality on the ground.
Right.
A reality where, firewalls just aren't enough. You can't just build a wall, pour yourself a coffee, and, hope for the best.
So our mission today, it's straightforward, but I think ambitious.
Yeah.
We're going to decode this exam. We're not just going to stand here and list off topics.
That would be so boring.
So boring. And you can just read a PDF for that. What we want to do is give you, the listener, a genuine roadmap. Whether you're, I don't know, an aspiring security analyst, maybe you're a manager who just needs to finally understand what your team is screaming about.
Or maybe your test is next week and you're panicking.
Or, hey, maybe your test is next week. We've got your back. We're going to try and contextualize the chaos.
We are.
And we've pulled insights from the heavy hitters. We've got notes from Mike Chappell and David Seidel guys. We've got Ian Neal's breakdown, Professor Messer's course notes. It's basically the Avengers of Security plus prep materials.
It's a really great stack of resources. I think it covers all the angles, the deep theory, the practical side, and just the nuts and bolts of how do I pass this thing?
Exactly. So let's start with the landscape itself, understanding the beast. What are we actually walking into with the SY0701? Because just looking at the logistics, it seems tight.
It is a pressure cooker. There's no other way to put it. Logistically, on the surface, it hasn't changed a whole lot from older versions, but the pressure is definitely there. You've got 90 minutes.
Okay.
And in that 90 minutes, you get a maximum of 90 questions.
Which, if you do the math on that, is just terrifying. It's a minute a question.
Roughly, yeah. But then you have to factor in reading time, and some of these questions are not one-liners. They're these long, paragraph-long scenarios you have to digest first.
And that's before you even get to the scary stuff.
Right. That's assuming you don't get completely bogged down on the performance-based questions, which we will definitely talk about those later. But I think the real kicker is the passing score. You need a 750 on a scale that goes from 100 to 900.
Okay, let's unpack that, because 750 sounds like, I don't know, a C average in school. But it's not, right? It doesn't work that way.
No, it's definitely not a C. It's a cruel trick. Because of the weighted scaling CompTIA uses, where, harder questions are worth more points, it works out to roughly 83, maybe 84%.
Wow.
So that leaves a very, very little room for error. You can't just kind of know this stuff. You really have to know it cold.
And this version, the 701, it took over from the 601 back in July of 2024. Looking at the comparison documents, this wasn't just a minor tweak. This felt like a massive overhaul.
It was a paradigm shift. I think the most shocking statistic I saw was that something like 36% of the objectives from the old 601 exam were just cut.
Over a third of the test.
Over a third. Gone. Just vanished.
So what did they get rid of? What got tossed out?
A lot of the legacy stuff, the things that are more historical footnotes now, like hyper-specific social engineering variants like bluejacking.
I remember that. Sending messages over Bluetooth.
Right. Which, was a thing, but it's not a primary threat vector in 2026. Or they removed really old, obscure protocols that you just don't see in a modern hybrid cloud environment. They really streamlined it. The whole focus shifted away from memorize this list of obscure ports to how do we actually operate and secure a modern network?
Right. I definitely noticed that shift in the domains themselves.
Yeah.
They feel more practical. Like they actually want you to be useful on day one of the job.
That's exactly it. It's streamlined into 5 very specific domains. You've got general security concepts, then threats and vulnerabilities, security architecture, security operations, and finally, program management.
And I want to flag something right now for everyone listening. We're going to go through all of these, but you have to pay attention to the weighting. Domain 4, security operations, that's 28% of the entire exam.
That is a huge chunk. Nearly a third of your total score is right there.
Which, to me, that's CompTIA basically screaming, it's great if you know the theory, but can you actually do the job?
Can you do the job? Can you read a log file? Can you spot an incident while it's happening? Can you actually configure the tool? That's what operations is all about.
Okay, let's dive into that first one then. Domain 1, general security concepts. This is the foundation. And you can't even begin to talk about security without the holy trinity, right? The CIA triad.
It is the bedrock of everything. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Every single decision you make comes back to one of these three.
It sounds so simple on the surface, but let's break them down really quick for someone who might be totally new to this.
Sure, so confidentiality is pretty much what it sounds like. It's about keeping secrets secret. If you're encrypting a file so that only the CEO can read it, you're protecting confidentiality.
Okay, a password on my phone?
Password on your own, perfect example. That's confidentiality.
All right, and integrity.
Integrity is all about trust. It's the, how do I know this data hasn't been changed? Question. So when you download a file and check its hash value to make sure no one tampered with it in transit, that's integrity.
Or like a digital signature on a contract.
Exactly. You are guaranteeing the integrity of that document.
And then availability. This feels like the one people forget about until, Netflix goes down and everyone panics.
It is. Everyone takes it for granted. Availability is just making sure the systems are up and running when authorized users need them. So if you're setting up a backup power generator for a data center, or you're using redundant hard drives in a RAID array, or you're protecting against a DDoS attack, all of that is about ensuring availability.
But the big news star in Domain 1, and this is plastered all over the 701 objectives, is zero trust.
Yes, this is the headline feature. If you take literally nothing else away from Domain 1, you have to understand zero trust.
So break this down for us, because zero trust sounds like a really bad relationship problem, but in security, it's actually a good thing.
In security, it's the only way to survive now. The old model, the one we've used for decades, was perimeter-based. Think of it like a medieval castle with a huge wall and a moat. That was the corporate network. Once you crossed the drawbridge, you authenticated through the firewall, and you were inside the castle walls, everybody inside implicitly trusted you. You could just roam the halls, go into the kitchen, wander into the throne room.
Which is great until a spy climbs the wall, or, someone steals a suit of armor from one of the knights.
Exactly. Once a bad actor got past that one strong firewall, they had free reign. Moving laterally across the network was incredibly easy. Zero Trust comes along and says, look, we don't care if you're inside the building. We don't care if you're using the CEO's laptop. We don't care if you have a valid security badge. We are going to verify every single request. The motto is never trust, always verify.
So every single time I try to open a file or access a server, the system is basically stopping me at the door and checking my ID again.
Effectively, yes. Every single time. It checks your identity, sure, but it also checks the health of your device. Is your operating system patched? Do you have malware running? And it also checks your context. Like, why is Bob from accounting trying to access the core engineering server at 3 in the morning from a coffee shop in another country?
That makes so much sense, especially with remote work. I mean, there is no perimeter anymore. The perimeter is my living room. It's everywhere.
The perimeter is the user. And that mindset shift is absolutely critical for this exam.
Now, another big acronym that kept popping up in all the notes was AAA.
AAA, this one's a classic. Identification, authentication, authorization, and accounting.
And I'll be honest, I always get authentication and authorization mixed up. What's the absolute easiest way to keep those two straight?
Okay, think of it like getting on an airplane. Identification is you walking up to the counter and claiming who you are. Hi, I am John Smith. You're just stating your identity.
Okay, simple enough.
Authentication is when you hand over your passport. You are proving you are who you say you are. You provide evidence to back up your claim.
Got it. And authorization.
Authorization is your boarding pass. Just because you are John Smith and you proved it with your passport, that doesn't mean you get to go fly the plane.
Right.
Your ticket, the boarding pass, authorizes you to sit in seat 4B on this specific flight. It defines your permissions, what you are allowed to do.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And accounting. What's that last A?
That's the flight log. It's the record that you were there, what you did, and when you did it. It's the audit trail. So if something goes wrong, we can look back and see that John Smith was in seat 4B.
Got it. Okay. Now, Domain 1 also covers physical security. And I have to admit, this part is always kind of fun for me because it feels like something out of a spy movie. We're talking about man traps and Faraday cages.
It definitely has that vibe. But it's so important because in our super digital world, physical security is very often the weakest link in the chain. You can have the best firewall on the planet, the most complex encryption, but if I can just walk into your server room and pull a hard drive out of the rack,
Game over.
it's completely game over. So yeah, we studied the physical controls, things like fencing, proper lighting, bollards, those big concrete or steel posts that stop cars from ramming into buildings.
And the man trap. I just love that name.
It's very descriptive. It's basically a small room or a vestibule with two doors, and the first door has to close and lock securely before the second door will open.
Ah, so it stops tail waiting.
Exactly. It prevents an unauthorized person from just sneaking in right behind someone who is authorized. It forces one person at a time.
And what about Faraday cages? That sounds even more sci-fi. That's for blocking signals, right?
Yeah, that's what it does. It's an enclosure made of a conductive mesh, usually copper, and it blocks electromagnetic fields. So if you have a super secure room, a SCIF, where you absolutely cannot have any cell signals or Wi-Fi going in or out, you build it as a Faraday cage. It also protects sensitive equipment from something like an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse.
It's really amazing to me that in 2026, with all our AI and our cloud technology, we're still talking about fences and heavy doors.
Well, some things never change. Gravity and physics are still very effective security controls.
One last thing in Domain 1 that all the sources really emphasized as, quote, boring but critical. Change management.
Oh, it is the unsexy hero of security. Absolutely.
Why is it so important? Because on the surface, it just sounds like bureaucracy and paperwork.
It is bureaucracy and paperwork, but it's the bureaucracy that saves lives. Or at least it saves uptime and prevents breaches. Unmanaged change is just chaos. If some network admin decides to update a critical firewall rule on a Friday afternoon without testing it, without telling anyone, and the entire company network goes down.
That's a massive availability breach right there.
A huge one. And then when everyone is scrambling to fix it, nobody even knows what changed. Change management provides that formal life cycle. You have to analyze the proposed change, plan it, get it approved, implement it, and most importantly, have a rollback plan in case it all goes wrong. You need that paper trail.
So no more cowboy coding directly on the production server.
Absolutely not. That's how careers end.
All right, let's move into the scary stuff. Domain 2. Threats, vulnerabilities, and mitigations. This is the bad stuff.
And it's 22% of the exam, so it's a big chunk of bad stuff.
We have to start with the threat actors,
Bad.
the bad guys. And there's a real hierarchy here, isn't there? It's not all just one type of hacker.
Not at all. It's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
At the very bottom, in terms of sophistication, you have the script kiddies.
Which has always sounded a little derogatory.
It is, a little bit, and that's because it refers to attackers who don't have deep technical knowledge of their own. They're just downloading tools or running scripts that other smarter people wrote. Maybe they got them off the dark web or even a public site like GitHub, and they're just firing them off to see what happens.
So they aren't the criminal masterminds.
No, their sophistication is very low. But they're still dangerous because there are just so many of them, and they're very noisy. They create a lot of distraction.
And then at the absolute other end of the spectrum.
At the top, you have the APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats. And this is almost always code for nation-states.
We're talking government-level hacking. Spies.
We are. They have incredibly high resources, both financial and technical. They are extremely sophisticated, and that word persistent in the name is the key. They don't just smash and grab and leave. They get into a network and they stay there for months or even years, quietly siphoning data.
But all the sources warned about one particular actor that's often the most dangerous of all, the insider threat.
The call is coming from inside the house.
Why is the insider so uniquely dangerous?
Because they already have the keys to the kingdom. They have authorized access. They know where the crown jewels, the sensitive data are located. They completely bypass the physical security and the perimeter firewalls just by badging in and showing up for work.
Right.
And an insider could be a malicious, disgruntled employee looking for revenge, or it could be a well-meaning but negligent employee who just clicked on the wrong link in an email. Both are incredibly damaging.
Which brings us perfectly to social engineering, the art of hacking the human.
Because humans are always the one vulnerability that you can't really patch with software.
And the exam covers all the different flavors. We all know phishing, the generic spam emails. But what about vishing?
Vishing is voice phishing. So it's getting a phone call from Microsoft support telling you that you have a virus on your computer and you need to give them remote access. Or a call from your bank claiming there's fraud on your account and they need your password to fix it.
And with AI voice cloning now.
It is becoming terrifyingly realistic. You might get a call that sounds exactly like your boss asking you to do something.
Wow. Okay. Or what about whaling?
Whaling is just spear phishing that targets the big fish.
Hmm.
The C-suite executives, the whales.
Right.
You don't send a generic, your mailbox is full, click here email to a CEO. You send a highly customized, well-researched email that looks like a legal subpoena from a real law firm or a confidential message from a member of the board. It takes a lot more work, but the payoff is huge.
And the sources all mention the psychological triggers here. It's not just about the technology. It's about how they manipulate you. They talk about urgency, authority, trust.
Yes, exactly. Click this link now or your account will be permanently deleted. That creates a sense of urgency. It makes you panic and bypass your normal critical thinking process. This is the CEO. I need you to process this wire transfer immediately. That's using a position of authority. Most people are conditioned to just obey what the boss says. It's pure psychological warfare.
It really is. Okay, let's talk about the actual malware and the big moneymaker of our time, ransomware.
This is the dominant threat, hands down. It's a business model, a very successful, very evil business model. It gets on your systems, encrypts all your critical data, and then demands a payment, usually in cryptocurrency, for the decryption key. It has shut down hospitals, major fuel pipelines, entire city governments.
And it's not even just about encryption anymore, is it? The attack has evolved.
No, now the common practice is double extortion. First, they encrypt your data, but before they do that, they steal a copy of it. So if you refuse to pay the ransom, they say, fine, then we're going to leak all of your sensitive customer data online for the world to see.
That's just nasty. How about logic bombs? That sounds like something straight out of an action movie.
It does, but it's a very real threat, especially from insiders. It's a piece of malicious code that lies dormant, completely hidden, until a specific condition is met. Like a classic example is, if the HR database shows that my employee status has been changed to terminated, then execute a script to delete all the company servers.
Whoa.
It's a revenge mechanism, a dead man's switch.
Yeah, it is genuinely terrifying.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there are the specific attack vectors. SQL injection. This one always seems to confuse people.
It's actually quite elegant in a very nasty way. At its core, it's about attacking a web application's database through an input form.
Right.
Imagine a simple login box on a website. You're supposed to type your username, like Bob. The website's code takes that input, Bob, and plugs it into a database query to check your password.
Okay, that makes sense.
But what if, instead of typing Bob, you type a specific line of database code? You might be able to trick the database into thinking your command is part of its own programming. You are literally injecting your own SQL commands into its query.
So you're basically speaking the database's own language to it to get it to betray itself.
That's a perfect way to put it, yes.
And what about pass the hash?
Ah, that's a clever one. So on a modern network, when you log in, the system doesn't usually store your actual password in plain text. That would be crazy. It stores a hash of your password, which is like a one-way mathematical fingerprint. Right.
In a pass the hash attack, the hacker doesn't bother trying to crack your password. They just steal that hash from the computer's memory. Then they present that hash to another server on the network, and that server says, oh, that's a valid fingerprint. Come on in.
So they're stealing the authenticated token, not the original password.
Exactly. They're stealing the ticket, not the ID. It's much more efficient for them.
We also have to talk about supply chain risks. This was a huge addition to the 701 exam, wasn't it?
Massive, and for very good reason. Think about the SolarWinds attack, which is kind of the poster child for this. The hackers didn't attack their thousands of victims directly. That's too much work.
Right.
Instead, they attacked the one software company that all the victims used and trusted, SolarWinds. They poisoned the official software update. So when thousands of companies downloaded what they thought was a secure, legitimate patch from their trusted vendor, they were actually installing the malware themselves.
That's terrifying because you're trained to trust your vendors and install your updates. And that's why Domain 1's Zero Trust and Domain 5's vendor management have become so critical. You have to vet your entire supply chain. You can outsource the work, but you can never, ever outsource the risk.
Okay, let's build some defenses. Let's move to Domain 3. Security architecture. This is about building the fortress.
Or, maybe more accurately, designing the fortress so it's actually defendable.
One concept that came up again and again in the sources is segmentation. Why don't we just have one big, flat network where everything can talk to everything else?
Because if you have a flat network, and a hacker manages to compromise, say, the receptionist's computer through a phishing email, they can then move laterally, completely unchecked, to the payroll server, to the CEO's machine, to the domain controllers. Segmentation is about putting up internal walls. It contains the blast radius.
And the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. I love that Cold War term.
It's a buffer zone, a classic architecture concept. You put your public-facing servers, like your company's main website, in this separate, isolated network segment. So the public can get to it, but if that web server gets hacked, the attacker is still stuck inside the DMZ. They haven't breached your internal network where all the sensitive data is.
And for the super, super secret stuff, we have air gaps.
The ultimate in segmentation. An air gap means physically isolating a system. It is not connected to the internet. It is not connected to any other network that eventually touches the internet. To get data on or off of it, you have to use a USB drive or some other physical media. To hack it, you basically have to physically walk up to it.
Which is incredibly inconvenient, but I guess incredibly secure.
Security is always a trade-off with convenience. Always.
Now, the 701 is very heavily focused on the cloud. We're moving away from just on-premise servers to these hybrid environments. So we've got all these acronyms: SaaS, PaaS, IaaS.
Software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. You have to know the difference.
Okay, give us the quick and dirty differentiation.
SaaS, software as a service, is the easiest. Think of Gmail or Salesforce or Office 365. You just use the software through your browser. The vendor manages everything else, the servers, the updates, the security. You just use it.
Got it.
IaaS, infrastructure as a service, is the other extreme. This is like renting a virtual computer from Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. They provide the raw hardware and the power and the network connection, but you are responsible for managing the operating system, patching it, and installing all your apps.
Okay, so what's PaaS in the middle?
PaaS, Platform as a Service, is mainly for developers. You bring your application code, and the provider gives you the platform to run it on. You don't have to manage the underlying OS, but you control your own app. It's a middle ground.
And we really can't talk about architecture without getting into cryptography. This is the part that scares a lot of people. The math.
Don't panic about the math, seriously. For the Security Plus exam, you really just need to focus on the concepts. What is it, and why do we use it?
Okay, so the big conceptual split. Symmetric versus asymmetric.
Right. Symmetric encryption is fast and simple. It uses one single key to both lock, encrypt, and unlock, decrypt the data. It's like your house key. You use the same key to lock the door and to open it again.
Okay, but the problem is, how do I get that key to use securely? If I just email it, someone can intercept it.
Exactly. That's the key exchange problem. And that's where asymmetric encryption comes in. It's slower, but it solves that problem. With asymmetric, you have two keys that are mathematically linked, a public key and a private key.
Okay.
I can give my public key to the entire world. I can post it on my website. Anyone can use my public key to lock a message and send it to me, but only I can unlock that message using my secret private key.
Ah, so that allows for a secure exchange of information without ever having to share the secret key.
Exactly. It's the foundation of almost all secure communication on the internet, like HTTPS for websites.
And then we have hashing.
Hashing is different. It's one way. You can run data through a hashing algorithm to get a unique fingerprint, the hash, but you can never, ever turn that hash back into the original data.
So what's it for?
Integrity. If I download a big software file, the website will also post the file's SHA-256 hash. I can calculate the hash of the file I downloaded, and if my hash matches the one on the website, I know with certainty that my file hasn't been corrupted or maliciously tampered with.
And what's salting? I saw that mentioned in the guides.
Salting is a simple but brilliant trick used for storing passwords. Before you hash a user's password, you add a little bit of random data to it, the salt.
Why?
It prevents attackers from using something called rainbow tables. A rainbow table is a huge pre-computed list of hashes for common passwords. By adding a unique salt to every user's password, you ensure that even if two users have the same password, like password 123, their stored hashes will be completely different. It makes cracking them much, much harder.
It adds a little flavor to the password so the attacker's pre-built list doesn't work.
A very savory way to put it, but yes, that's exactly what it does.
Okay, we have arrived. The heavyweight champion of the entire exam. Domain 4. Security operations, 28%. This is the daily grind.
This is where the rubber meets the road. This isn't theory. This is the job description for a security analyst.
And it really starts with monitoring and logging, which leads to the big tool, silent, security information, and event management.
And it's pronounced SIM, by the way. Imagine you work for a company with 1,000 servers, hundreds of firewalls, laptops, routers. They are all generating log files every single second of every day. Millions of events. A human cannot possibly read all of that.
Right.
The SIM's job is to aggregate all of those logs into one central place and then use correlation rules to look for interesting patterns. It's designed to find the malicious needle in a giant stack of normal, boring needles.
And when it finds that needle, that's when we enter incident response, or IR.
And the IR lifecycle is absolutely crucial for the exam. You have to know the steps. Preparation, then detection and analysis, then containment, eradication, and recovery. And finally, lessons learned.
The sources all seem to highlight containment as a really critical decision point.
It is. It's a huge decision. So let's say you found a server that's infected with malware and an attacker is actively using it. What do? Do you just run in and pull the network cable and power cord?
My gut instinct says yes. Kill it with fire. Isolate it immediately.
That's a very common instinct. But if you do that, you instantly destroy all the evidence that's living in the computer's RAM, its volatile memory. You also immediately alert the attacker that you've found them, so they might start destroying their own tracks. Sometimes the better containment strategy is to just disconnect it from the rest of your network, but keep it powered on in a sandbox so you can watch what the attacker is doing.
So you can learn their techniques.
Exactly. It's a judgment call every time.
And that leads right into the forensics part, the order of volatility.
This is a classic exam question. You will almost certainly see this. When you're collecting digital evidence from a live system, you have to collect the most volatile data first, the stuff that will disappear forever if the power is cut.
So that would be the CPU cache and the system RAM first.
Yes. CPU cache, registers, and system RAM. Then you move to temporary files on the hard drive, then the main hard drive data itself, and finally, things like archival backups, which are the least volatile. If you turn the computer off first, all that juicy information in the RAM is gone forever, and you might lose active encryption keys or malware processes.
And then there's chain of custody.
Absolutely essential. It's the meticulous log of who handled the evidence, when they handled it, where it was stored, and why it was accessed. If there is a single gap in that timeline, that piece of evidence will be thrown out of court because you can't prove it wasn't tampered with.
Now, a really big addition in 701 for the operations domain is automation, the acronym SO.
Security orchestration, automation, and response.
It sounds like SIM's bigger, more active brother.
That's a great way to think of it. It works hand in hand with the SIM. So the SIM might generate an alert that says, hey, this IP address from a known malicious country just tried to log into our server 50 times in 1 second.
Right. A brute force attack.
Exactly. The SIR platform takes that alert and says, okay, I have a pre-written playbook for this scenario. I'm going to automatically add a rule to the firewall to block that IP address, and I don't need a human to do it.
That's incredible. It's all about reducing alert fatigue.
100%.
Yeah.
Human security analysts get thousands of alerts a day. Most of them are false positives. It's exhausting. Automation handles the low-level, repetitive noise so the humans can focus their brain power on the complex, novel threats.
Okay, finally, we have Domain 5, Security Program Management and Oversight. I call this one the adult in the room domain.
That's not a bad name for it. It's governance, risk, and compliance, GRC.
And we're talking about laws and regulations here. The exam expects you to know about GDPR, CompTIA, PCI DSS.
You don't need to be a lawyer, but you need to know the basics. GDPR for European Union data privacy. IPPA for protected health information in the U.S. PCI DSS for handling credit card data. You have to know what they protect and generally who they apply to.
And then there's risk management, the 4 main strategies: avoid, transfer, mitigate, and accept.
Right. And you have to know how to apply these. Let's use a simple car analogy. The risk is getting into a car crash. To avoid it, you just never get in a car. You stop doing the risky activity entirely.
Okay.
To mitigate it, you drive, but you wear a seatbelt, you have airbags, you obey the speed limit, you don't text and drive. You're implementing controls to reduce the likelihood or impact of the crash.
Makes sense.
To transfer it, you buy car insurance. If you do get into a crash, the insurance company pays for the damages. You've transferred the financial risk to them.
And what about accept?
Well, you know there's a tiny, tiny risk that a meteor could fall from the sky and hit your car while you're driving. But the cost of building a meteor-proof car is absurdly high. So you just say, I accept that infinitesimal risk, and you drive anyway.
That makes it crystal clear. And I imagine businesses are doing that kind of math every single day.
Every day. And that's the difference between quantitative and qualitative risk analysis. Quantitative puts a dollar figure on it. This risk will cost us exactly $1.2 million. Qualitative is more subjective. This risk is high, medium, or low.
Okay, we've done it. We've toured all 5 domains. We know what this beast looks like. Now for the most important part. How do we actually slay it? Let's talk strategy.
You absolutely need a battle plan. You can't just wander in and hope for the best.
And the sources all seem to converge on this trifecta approach.
I love this approach. I recommend it to everyone because it balances out different learning styles and reinforces the material in different ways.
So what are the 3 parts?
Part 1 is a video course. This gives you the broad overview, the framework. Professor Messer is the legend here, mainly because his videos are fantastic, they follow the objectives perfectly, and they're completely free.
Can't beat free.
Part 2 is a book, a good study guide. You need the depth that a video might gloss over. The videos are great, but sometimes you need to read the nuanced definition of a specific protocol. And the Mike Chappell-David Seidel book or the Ian Neal guide are top tier.
And the 3rd part of the trifecta.
Practice, 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 practice. You need hands-on labs and, more importantly, tons of practice questions.
Let's talk about some of those specific resources that were mentioned. We have Professor Messer, the free video king.
Great for structure, great for visual learners. He has great notes, too.
And then there's Ian Neal's book.
His book is really well known for being written in very plain English. If you find the official dry textbook definitions confusing, Neal is a fantastic translator. He makes it make sense.
Dion training.
Yeah. Dion is famous for his practice exams. A lot of people swear that his questions are worded very, very similarly to what you'll see on the real test. And he gives you great explanations for why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong.
Okay, speaking of the test, we have to talk about the PBQs, the performance-based questions. These are the ones that make people cry.
They are so intimidating because instead of a multiple choice question, you get a simulation. A little window pops up and it says, here is a firewall interface. Configure the rules to block web traffic but allow email. Or here is a messy network diagram. Drag and drop the different security devices into the correct places.
So what's the strategy there? How do you tackle those?
You skip them.
Wait, really?
At the start of the exam, yes, 100%. They almost always pop up at the very beginning of the test, and they are designed to be time sinks. You can easily burn 15, 20 minutes fiddling with one drag-and-drop interface, and that's 20 questions you didn't answer.
So you flag them and move on.
You flag them for review, you skip them, you go through and answer all the multiple-choice questions you know. You build your confidence, you bank those easy points. Then, you come back to the PBQs with whatever time you have left at the end.
That is some solid, practical advice. Don't let the very first question tank your entire time management strategy.
Exactly. Play the game to win.
And what about study plans? The source material mentioned a nice 30-day plan.
It's intense, but it's very doable if you're disciplined. It's usually about 2 hours a day, breaking the exam down domain by domain, week by week. But the absolute key is active recall, not passive reading. Don't just read the chapter on zero trust.
Right.
Close the book, turn to your cat or your roommate, and try to explain zero trust in your own words. If you can't explain it simply, you don't really know it yet.
And you have to take full-length, timed practice exams.
Oh, you must. You have to build up your mental stamina. Sitting and focusing intensely for 90 straight minutes is hard. You do not want the real exam to be the first time you've ever tried to sit still and concentrate for that long.
So let's zoom out here for a second. We've unpacked the exam. We've looked at the changes from 601 to 701. It seems really clear that the Security Plus is trying to produce a different kind of security professional now.
It is. It's moving away from the trivia master, who can recite port numbers, and toward the operational thinker. It wants people who understand why we secure things a certain way, not just how to click a specific setting in a specific tool.
And with the rise of AI, which is now explicitly baked into the exam objectives, it really feels like the role of the analyst itself is evolving.
It's becoming a partnership. The AI is fantastic at handling the immense volume, at sifting through millions of logs. The human is there to handle the nuance, the context, the investigation that requires creative thinking.
So here's the big, final, provocative question I want to leave our listeners with. We're seeing automation and SOAR starting to take over parts of Domain 4. We're seeing AI being used for threat detection in Domain 2. If you pass this test today, are you proving that you have the skills to secure a network? Or are you just proving that you understand the vocabulary of the machines that will eventually do most of the securing for you?
That is the question of the decade, isn't it? But I would argue that until the machines can truly understand business context and risk appetite and ethics, they're always going to need a skilled human pilot.
Then that pilot needs to be certified.
That pilot needs to be certified.
So there you have it. You have your marching orders. Pick a book, pick a video series, set a date on the calendar. The landscape of 2026 is out there, and it's waiting for you. Thanks for diving in with us.
Good luck on the exam.
We'll see you on the next Deep Dive.